It's been 20 years, yet the memory of this incident feels so fresh. I was 8 years old back then. I lived with my dad, as my parents were going through a divorce. My dad worked as a nurse at the local hospital, so he had to pull a lot of night shifts often. Whenever he had night shifts, I went to spend the night with my grandma, who lived 2 blocks away from our house. But the night when this incident happened, my grandma was out of town. It was a Saturday night, and my dad and I were all set to go out to dinner when his phone rang. After talking for a brief moment, my dad told me he has to rush to the hospital as it's an emergency. But he'll be back in an hour. He asked me if I would be okay to stay on my own for a while, which I gladly accepted. Being an 8-year-old, having the house to yourself felt quite thrilling. He got into his car and he told me to lock the doors and watch TV until he comes back. I watched him drive away and then lock the door. It was my first time being home alone, so I felt like a king. I could do whatever I want now, and there's no one to scold me. I drank a lot of juice, ate 3 scoops of ice cream, 2 big chocolate muffins, without having to ask for permission. I then ran into my dad's office, which always fascinated me. I sat on his big armchair and started to go through the stuff lying on his table. He had a fountain pen that often grabbed my attention. I started writing with it on his fresh white memo pads. After jeopardizing a few pages of the memo pad, I rolled them into a paper ball and aimed for the basket in the corner. 15 minutes went by doing all these stupid things when I remembered about the clown head. A patient of my dad gave him a big rubber clown head before passing away in a terrible accident. My dad couldn't say no to the man, so he brought it home. But he kept it in the garage, and no matter how many times I asked for it, he never let me play with that. I've always been a weird kid who was never terrified of clowns. Instead, I liked them. I loved their goofy appearance. I came out of his office and walked to the garage. The house was so quiet that I could hear my every footstep creaking on the wooden floor. I entered the garage and turned on the lights. The clown head was about a foot tall, with no holes for eyes or nostrils. The clown face was drawn on. It can be creepy to some people, but not to me. As I already said, I had a fascination for clowns. I picked up the clown head, and suddenly, a stroke of cold wind brushed through my left shoulder. Holding the clown head, I turned back and saw nothing in that empty garage. The eyes of the clown were blue, and his smile was too big to describe. As I hold the clown head in my hands, a weird sensation took over my body. I began to hear a voice in my head. The voice was hush, yet shrill. "Put it on!" "What? Is anyone here?" "Just put it on." Before I could realize, I was talking to myself. My hands lifted my head and made me wear it. I can't explain the feeling when my head entered the clown head, but I still feel something hypnotized me. Something made me wear it, using my own hands. I stood like a statue for a moment. The clown head was weird from the inside. A smell of rubber, mixed with paint, lingered inside of the air of the clown head. As I snapped out of my state of trance, I realized I didn't want to play with it anymore. Hence, decided to take it off. And that's when the nightmare began. I casually pulled the clown head, but it didn't come out. Thinking it might have got stuck, I grabbed the top of the head with both my hands and pulled it again, but the head didn't move an inch. Drops of sweat appeared on my forehead as I realized the air inside the head had started to warm up, and there is no hole for ventilation in it. I couldn't see or hear anything, and my breathing got heavy. Okay, it'll come off. I just had to pull harder. I told myself to keep calm and not panic. I started pulling the head, but it wasn't coming off. I tried to slip my finger in to create a gap, but it was stuck around my neck too tightly. What the hell? I tried harder for a few more seconds and finally started to panic. The air inside the head was getting hotter with me panicking, and I started choking and gasping inside it. It was so damn easy to put on, but feels completely impossible to take off. Tears rolled down my cheek in fear. I screamed, "Dad, help me!" But then remembered I am the only one in this house. I couldn't make my way outside the garage, and it also didn't feel safe to walk with this head on. I feared if I stumble down, then I'll get more injured. Slowly, I started to suffocate. I grabbed it, pulled it, hit it with my small hands, but nothing helped. I screamed and felt even more terrified, hearing them cough inside the clown head. There's no way my neighbors can hear me, which means if I don't take it out myself, I'll die. My ears turned red, and I could feel my entire face burning. The situation was so claustrophobic that I peed my pants. I was suffering and crying. I prayed to God to get me out of this, and I will never look at it again. My paranoia reached such a level that I felt pressure in my neck and vomited at once. The juice, muffins, ice cream all came out from my mouth in the worst form possible and started to float inside the clown head, which was also running out of breathable air. The toxic smell of my vomit mixed with the rubbery smell of the clown head made me realize death is not far away. As I moved left to right in panic, the vomit moved around my nose and ear, which resulted in me vomiting more and more. I couldn't stop myself, even if I wanted to. Now, I was choking in my vomit under the worst circumstances possible. My nostrils got blocked by the disgusting fluid, and my ears felt numb. A shrill beep was going in my head that started to blur my vision. I understood if I don't do something quickly, I am not going to survive. I pulled and pulled, but the head was getting tighter around my neck. I was trying hard, but suddenly my hand slipped, and I fell on the shelves at the garage wall. Trying to regain my balance, I fell on the floor at my back, and the vomited fluid went behind my head and let my nose finally pop out. I was searching for something when my hand picked up a metal tool that had fallen from the shelf. It was a spanner. I placed the pointy arc between my jaw and the clown head and started to put pressure on the head to come out. The spanner created a small gap, and the gooey fluid started to drip from the gap. I kept still until most of the fluid flowed away, and some amount of air flowed in, giving me a chance to fight back. Once I regained my sanity, I grabbed the spanner real tight and said to myself that in the count of 3, I'll put all my pressure so that the spanner pulls up the clown head. 1, 2, 3. As I did what I planned, a cracking sound took place with horrifying pain that made me scream. The clown head tore from that one corner due to the pressure, but my jaw broke as well, smeared in blood, vomit, and sweat. When I finally took the clown head off, I heard footsteps coming at me while screaming my name. Andrew! Andrew! Oh my God! Andrew! I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. Doctors had to clip my left jaw back, followed by 7 hours of surgery. There was nothing to do, no one to blame, as it was an accident that happened to a stupid kid who did a stupid thing while being home alone. Luckily, my broken jaw got better with time, and I don't have difficulty talking or eating, as steel plates are attached inside my mouth to support my facial structure. The only thing that bothers me is my scar. I have this huge scar on my left cheek. It forms into a disturbing smile whenever I stretch my lips. I've lost my face forever. Now, there's an invisible clown head resting on me for the rest of my life.